Hey guys, Joe here. So I went to Costco to get some food, and so I was talking to one of my employees again, the one that is gonna, do his own thing. And the one thing after talking to him, I realized more and more this is probably a deal. Though I haven't been through a recession at this point with the fence company, but it only seems logical to me. So might be wrong, but I don't think I am. And so neglecting basically the number of leads that are coming in, right? So, and what I told them is basically in the past 6 years, like that's all focused on because I didn't think I was a salesperson. So I never focused on how to like increase the closing percent. I just looked at how do we increase the number of leads that are coming into the door. And because of all that crap that I've done, it's basically allowed us to, on average, get between, during peak season, but on average peak season, anywhere from like 100 to 200 leads a week. And then for the course of the entire year, last year I think we're at like 3,700, 4,000, somewhere around there. Total number of leads that are coming into the door. Now, obviously, not all of them are qualified, but me personally, the last, 2 years, because of the free money and everyone being stuck at home, there's been a ton, for the home industry, like there's been a ton of work, like a ton. Like, they weren't traveling, they were getting free money. So they're like, you know what, let me put it onto this. Like, I'm stuck at home with these people. Like, I might as well enjoy my time, right? And well, what's going to happen is a few things. One is, again, a lot of people reached out and got a lot of work done. So over the next few years, and like this whole pandemic probably forced a lot of people, not forced, but coerced a lot of people to move forward. That probably would have waited a few years, right? And so what's going to happen is, like, because of that, you had this huge influx of leads and business and everything else, which everyone thinks they're a genius and everything else. And but going down the line, like that's probably not going to be the case because they already got the work done, unless it's stuff that is continually needing to be done. But like if you already remodeled the house or you added the addition or you did their bathroom or whatever else, like how many times, like other rooms, are they really going to get done, right? Um, and then when you throw in the recession, so what's going to end up happening is, there's at least a perceived threat. So, less calls are going to be coming in. Um, and after talking to him, like he's seeing, a little decrease in the amount of calls coming in. But more so, it's like the number of qualified people that are going to be calling in, right? Because again, like if they don't have the money, or they perceive that like they may lose a job in the future, or because of this recession, like they're going to be tighter with their spending. So what's going to end up happening is if they were willing to spend, just say 10,000, like they may only be comfortable with like 7 or 8, right? And a lot of times, like I don't know about like for you, but like when they call in, they swear the fence is going to be $5,000 or $4,000, but in reality it's like 10, right? 9 and 10. So it's almost double like what they were expecting to begin with, and now, yeah, not even including the price of materials. I'm not getting into that. But now, with this perceived threat, they, if they thought it was going to be 4 or 5, that you might be able to get them to that 9 and 10 range. But with all these perceived threats that are coming at them, they're not. They're going to be way less likely to go from 4 to 5 to 9 and 10. Like it's just going to be more difficult, right? And then on top of that, the people that are, the amount of people that are going to be actively looking to get work done during a recession is going to be drastically lower than it is right now, right? So you have this like perfect storm of issues that are coming about. So you have less leads coming in. They are, scared about the future, so they're less likely to, spend more money. Okay, so it's going to make a much more difficult sale, especially if you're in the higher end, of the companies out there. So again, like for us, if like a typical company is charging like 8, we're charging 9 and 10, and so it's going to make that sale more difficult. Plus, less leads coming in as well. And what's also going to happen is that because all these other companies are getting less leads and dealing with cheaper people, they're going to start dropping their price. So I've talked about in past videos, and I just said it to my employee, is that the way this works is just say you need $5,000 each week, to hit your goals or whatever, and each job is worth on average $1,000. Well, then you need 5 jobs. Well, if you book at just say 25%, if you need 5 jobs, then at 25%, you're going to need 20 leads to come into the door, right? Well, what's going to happen now is everyone's dropping their price. And now, like before, you might have got 20 leads a week, or you might have had 30 or 40 leads, right? Well, now that number might drop down to 10. Okay. There's a very real possibility, like half or even less than half are going to be calling, right? So instead of having 20 leads a week, now you're down to 10, right? And naturally, what happens is that when you start having less leads, you just want to book more jobs, right? That's all like everyone typically thinks is I need to book more jobs. They don't look at like I need to make an X amount per week. They just want to get something on the books, right? So you drop your price. Now, if you're making $1,000 and just say the price of the project was $5,000 and you're making, or just say it was $4,000 and you're making 1,000, so you're only making 25% gross profit, which hopefully that's not the case, but it very well may be. Okay. Well, now instead of charging $4,000, you drop it and you're like, I'm just going to charge 3,500. Doesn't sound that bad, right? Well, the problem now is you're only making $500 from that job. Okay. Now, along with that, you have less leads coming in. And if you're still closing at 25%, you only have 10 leads. You're only booking roughly 2.5 jobs. Now, before you're making $5,000 per week, but now you're only making 1250. I think if I did the math, because you had 2.5 and at the five it was 12. Yeah. So now you're only making 1250, right? So like if you don't see the problem, like you're literally making 75 like percent less. Like you see the problem here, and if you need $5,000 and you're only booking 1250, like yeah, you have money coming in, but the problem a lot of times is if you're like when you're strapped for cash, is now you're reliant on the deposits and everything else to make it through, right? So you have this money coming in, so you think like I was just talking to him, like oh I have all this money, like I used to do this, like I have all this money, and I still do it to this day. I'm like oh shit, there's a ton of money in this bank account, but then like you're producing all these jobs and then you owe all this money out. So you might have 100 grand or 1,000 or whatever, or 10,000, whatever you think is a lot of money. But then by the time you pay everything out, like you probably have a negative amount of money, right? So, and like this was especially true for me when I first started out in 2016, because what was happening, like dumb, there was a lot of things that went on in my life in 2016. Just a lot. I'm not going to get into it, but there was a ton of shit. Like it was ugly, 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 ugly. So apparently I did my regular tax returns, but I did not do my business tax return, right? And I'm in the process of getting audited, so I'm dealing with that, right? So then we found out I didn't do my tax return, so then my accountant does my tax return, and lo and behold, I made a negative $264 in 2016. Now that was like the first real year, so I was working a ton of hours between day job and then the fence job and everything else, and then I was doing that for the entire year, and I made a negative $264, right? Crazy. So this is very real. It's going to happen, right? So anyway, so it's something to be careful of. So like, okay, so that's the whole problem. 9 minutes into the video, and you're probably zoning out. So like, what do we do about this, right? And I told him it's Google My Business, and then yeah, like number one, okay, because everyone does the same thing. When they go into when they're looking for a particular service, they pretty much all do the same thing, and they will type in whatever your service is near me. Fence company near me, that company near me, fence installation near me, like whatever. It's always it's pretty. I shouldn't say always, but I'd say at least 80% of the time. Holy shit, they're flying. Like 80% of the time. Oh my god. 80% of the time, they're doing that, right? How do I know? Well, because I track everything. I know, like, I have a million different phone numbers. I know where people are calling from, analytics set up, and everything else, and I know where they're going to. And typically, at least 80% on it, honestly, it's probably higher than that. It's Google My Business and the organic side of things for Google. Like, it just is. Like, that's what everyone uses. Doesn't matter if you have an iPhone, like, you're typically using Chrome. Just how it is. So that's what you need to focus on now. Okay, actually, I should have been focusing on it before, but it's kind of like the saying about the tree. The best time, is we planted 20 years ago. Second best time is today, right? So this is where you need to work on this today. Now, there's a video I probably won't link it, but if you go on search my YouTube channel, there's one, just type in Google My Business. It will show up. It's an older video, but the content's solid. It will go through line by line by line of what you need to do. It's very important, like very, very important, because that's where all my leads come from. And so anyway, I was talking to my, employee, and he's like, well, what do you, he was asking about that. And I said in this last live, but he's like, what do you, he's like, well, what should I do for leads? I'm like, Google My Business on SEO. And he's like, well, how do you do that? I said, look, I've been doing this for 6 and 7 years. I can't possibly begin to tell you everything that you need to know. Like, I just can't. And he's just looking at me. I'm like, well, I said the same example in the other video. Like, if I was going to school to be a doctor for 7 years, and then you come along and ask me, like, how to be a doctor, right? Or what do you need to know to be a doctor, right? Like, we could spend the next 15 minutes and I could, say whatever, but it's like not even going to scratch the surface of what I've done and what I've learned over the course of these 6 and 7 years, right? But at least with the video, it's going to give you everything's the 80-20 rule. So if you don't know the 80-20 rule, it's or they call it the Pareto principle. But basically, 80% of your results are coming from 20% of your effort, right? If you just focus on that video, that's going to give you the 80%. Like, there's of course more crap that you can do on the websites and everything else, and you're really involved with it and everything else. But it will give you 80% of what you need to know. Like what needs to be done. Like, by far, just do that, right? So that's what you need to focus on. SEO, yeah, more. I haven't really done any videos with that, but I'm better. Honestly, I'm better at Google My Business. So anyway, definitely, in my opinion, like I said, that's something that really needs to be focused on. If you're struggling to get leads now, especially like I'm making this video in June, if you're not getting enough leads now, like, imagine when there's a national or global crisis, and people don't have jobs, they don't have money, or even if they do, they're scared to spend anything because they're worried about losing their job and everything else. Like, imagine what's going to happen. Like, your lead volume is in, like, what I think is half. Now, it could be even less than that. It's very real possibility of that. It could be like 25% of what it is now. And if that's the case for some people, again, if you're only getting 20 leads a week, one, that would scare the shit out of me, like, personally, like, scare the shit out of me. But two, if it's 20% of that, that's only 4 leads. Like, what are you doing off of 4 leads? Now, what I did realize is, like, if you are, like, in my case, like, where it's fencing, like, I'm only gonna make on average like $2,000. Actually, it's 2,900 on an average. Like, that's what we pull in. Well, your situation is going to be different, and I don't think a lot of people talk about this. It's going to be different depending on, like, what your average sale is, what your average profit per job is, stuff like that. Because, like, when you look at the Contractor Sales Academy and stuff like that, like, they're very, like, they're good, right? They have a very professional setup and everything else. But I feel as though a lot of their tactics and a lot of the stuff that they're talking about is really geared towards, like, people with these larger job sizes. right? Because they're talking like just different things. Like if they're very reliant on, like they use the direct mail and everything else, which I'm sure works. However, when your average profit is $2,900 and you got to spend several $100s in direct mail, it's probably not going to work out too well. However, if you have these larger ticket items that like involve a lot of trust for the person that they're hiring, that's probably going to be more important in my opinion. But like when it comes to fencing and these lower end jobs, it just doesn't make sense to me, because at the end of the day, like they're just like naturally going to find someone cheaper, because they're like, how hard it going to be? It's just a fence. It's not like someone's going to die. It's not like someone like the house is going to create a flood or anything like that. So I think it's a different mentality, and I think you have to look at it from a different lens, in my opinion. Though they have been nothing but great, so I can't really, I'm not talking shit on them. I think you have to realize like what kind of business you're in. Like if you're a power washer, your business is solely relying on one, volume, and two, reoccurring revenue. So if that's the case, then you need to focus on how to get them to buy from you over and over and over again, because it's very costly and time consuming to get a new customer. But if you can keep them on, like if you're currently only power washing your houses, well, can you add on the concrete? You know, that the driveways. Can you add on fence staining, like that kind of thing, right? Because they kind of go hand in hand. So anyway, just some things to think about. Again, I have not been through a recession yet. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I know it's not going to be pretty. And like anything else, you kind of have to worry about the whole like sales cycle, right, for the customers, and the number, like the whole process for the business. Like I've narrowed it down to four things. Talking about other videos, but like it's just four things. Like it's simple when you think about it, right? So it's going to be, you need to get people to call you. Okay, you need to be able to convert those people into jobs. You need to produce the jobs, and then you need to know your numbers to make sure like you're not going broke. Like that's pretty much it, right? And so the first step, obviously, is you got to get people to call. So if you're just starting out, like you got to get people to know who you are. Like if they don't know who you are, you're never going to get any calls, right? You could do the best work, you could have the best pricing, you could get it done the quickest, but if they don't know who you are, it's not going to work out. And again, like if they don't know who you are, if you're not getting the leads you need to and everything else, what's going to happen is you're going to start dropping your prices, and it's a very vicious circle that like it's a very like a spiral down, because as you keep doing it more and more and more, what's going to happen is like as you drop your prices, sure, you may book more jobs, but then you're going to possibly a few things may happen. You might be over capacity, right? So you might be booking more jobs than you can handle, so then that makes things go south. Okay, you may start taking on work that you're really not that great at. So what ends up happening is it's going to take you longer and you're going to be less productive, and therefore you're going to make less money per day, which again is horrible. The other thing that can happen is as you start charging less and less, you're going to start dealing with bigger pain in the asses. We've found it time and time again. If we discount it all, if we price match it all, it's a nightmare. Why? Because people with money, for the most part, and the people that are willing to pay full price and everything else, they're not price shopping, right? They have a problem and they just want it fixed. Like that's what they want. They want it fixed with the least amount of effort, the least amount of chaos, the least amount of disruption in their day-to-day life for themselves and for their family. That's what they want, right? Because like, can you imagine as a husband hiring for a project, or a wife, or whatever it may be, whoever hires for that project, if the contractor sucks, like they're going to hear it from the partner. They just are, right? So they don't want to make the mistakes, so they just want to deal with the best of the best. Whereas people that are looking for the deals and discounts and everything else, they're a pain in the ass. Like 9 times out of 10, like they just are, right? And they're the type of people that want, like, for a quote, they're like, I want everything itemized. So it takes you forever to do the quote, and then they're like nitpicking over every little thing, where really it should be like, here's the price, right? And if, take it or leave it. And if they're asking for you to itemize it, it's a no. It's a no. This is our price. That would be like going into Chick-fil-A, and if a sandwich costs $5 or whatever it is, like I don't really do fast food anymore, but like that would be like me. I want an itemized list for everything and like what the cost is. I want to know how much, like, how much are the buns? How much does the bun weigh? How many pickles am I getting? Like, how many ounces are the pickle, right? The chicken, like, how big is the chicken? Is it? I don't want to hear it's this big. I want to know how many ounces this piece of chicken is, and what's the temperature on this thing, right? That sucks. It's no way to run your business because they're super critical. And then, like, once the job's done, then they get out their freaking magnifying glass and then they look at it, and like from 2 inches away, and they're nitpicking every little thing. So anyway, just my thoughts. About to be home. If this helps you, great. Hit the like button. If it doesn't help you, I'm sorry, and maybe put in a comment of how, like, maybe I could talk differently, or how I can help, or whatever. And if you have questions, concerns, or whatever, you can email support@localprohelper.com. I honestly don't have much time, so what would more than likely be happening is that I would create a video for you, like I would just do a live and just talk about like whatever your questions about. Or you can just send a message and say, hey Joe, I'm struggling with this, and then more or less I'm going to do the same thing and create a video. So hopefully it's some kind of content. Again, I don't know everything, and like in the majority of things, I don't know anything, right? So, but anyway, hope you guys have an awesome night, and I will talk to you soon.